for anyone, forgive, because forgiveness is not about absolving the other person. It's about taking the control back of your life, because you're meant to live, you're meant to enjoy, you're meant to enjoy the beauty this life has to offer.
Welcome to Newcomers on Fire. I'm very excited because today we have a very special guest. Her name is Kalpa Gupta. She's from India and moved to the United States in her mid 20s. She had a tremendous career there and identified a lot of these feelings of, being super competitive, perfectionism. And even though with all of that success, she was always asking this question, am I good enough? What's, these questions of feeling not sure about herself, and identify a lot with that because that happened to me too, which ultimately led to burnout and having a radical change in her life, which we are going to go deeper. But without further ado, I just want to say, Kalpa, thank you so much for accepting to be with us today. And how are you today?
Thank you, Miguel. I'm so thankful and grateful for you having me here and creating the space for some important conversations to take place. I'm doing fantastic, by the way. It's a beautiful day, weather here in Austin. Was able to see the sun. Sun is still rising from the east, so a lot in life is going well.
Oh, that's amazing. Here in Toronto, we're experiencing a little bit of like fall-ish weather, so it's a little bit of rain, a little bit of cold. But yes, I love Texas. So let's just start with some icebreaker rapid fire questions. My first one to you, Kalpa, is coffee or tea?
Tea, like hands down, you couldn't convert me to
No.
coffee. I mean, except for winter, my homemade, coffee like the Indian way, but I
Yeah.
am a tea person.
On my side is coffee all the time. What will be the first app that you check in the morning?
Uh, well, my phone alarm that I switch off,
That's the
right?
first one. Yeah.
And the next app is my audio memo where I have recorded in my own voice a meditation that I listen to.
Oh
Those
wow.
are two, my first ones.
That's incredible. I should do that too. What is one of your favorite quotes that inspires you?
This one I read a long time. Wow, there are so many quotes, but the one that comes to mind is um, you got to create the life that you want. I'm butchering the code, but it's the essence of it is you got to create the life you want. Otherwise, you're going to be handed down one you don't like.
Oh wow.
There's a choice in everything, and I'm going to read back that quote and let you know the exact quote and
And we can put it
the
on.
who said that. But it's one of the gist of it is just so powerful that we have choice in everything, and we got to actively co-create.
I like that. Yeah, for me, it's more like it's similar in a way that is find your way or make the way. So it's either or. Yeah. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who will they be?
Three people. I love the choice. So first is going to be my grandfather. He passed away when I was 11ish years old. It's been over 40 years now, but he was my biggest cheerleader, and I would love to find out how is life after life on earth, right? And there's just so many things that I wish I had shared when he was alive, but it's one of my favorite memories, and I would love to have, another opportunity to have dinner with him. And then the second person is going to be Oprah.
Wow.
She is my, like, I think my inner preacher, right? When I have to step into that, somebody with a lot of adversities and has created a big platform where she's paying it forward and really owning it, her voice. And number three is Celine Dion. I love music, and I was actually supposed to go to her concert for my 40th, but then she fell sick, and
Right.
a lot of it is known like publicly, so the concert got canceled. And then I was so thrilled to see her perform again at the Olympics, I believe, just recently. Just so yeah, I mean, those are the three
Oh,
for
wow.
me.
That's incredible. I love that. What's one thing that you wish you knew before moving to the US?
What did I wish? Oh my God, there's so much, right? I was so naive. I had a broken up in a relationship. I was working, and then my parents were like, "You're 26, get married." And then I they introduced me to my husband. We met, and I mean, I didn't know that's how I was going to get married. It was completely with our choice and, blessing. But at the same time, I had no idea when I moved here how hard it was going to be in terms
Right.
of finding a job. I quit my career without actually doing the due diligence of what it is like to relocate somewhere. And I didn't know anybody other than him.
Oh, wow. Oh, same happened to me. We're going to go deeper into that. And lastly, what
Definitely.
is your go to self care activity or routine?
A sleep and meditation.
Sleep and meditation. Nice. For me, it's hiking. So definitely, when I was like looking at you and your story, Kalpa, it's like I was like, wow, that's exactly what happened to me. This is exactly what I'm going through. Like I felt so identified, and I was so excited that you accepted to come here because your journey is so inspiring. So let's start breaking down a little bit your journey from that decision in your mid 20s to move to a new country, just starting from scratch. Can you tell us more about that? And also if everything went according to plan or if you expected some challenges, those initial impressions.
Sure. So first of all, I thank you for saying that it resonates. I think part of the sharing we do is also so it can help others, and in
Yes.
the process we also heal, right? So um, when I moved to the US, what is it like? So I was already in my corporate life. I had a master's degree. I was working in a financial services company 3 years into the post master's life, if you will, and 2 years into corporate. And when we decided to get married, my first thing was I went and I told the company, is there a role we can find? And I was so naive, right? And this is one advice I would give other people is, as I was sharing, when people realize that you're completely relocating, there's not as much interest in supporting you, or their hands are tied sometimes with the companies, right? So because they are looking to see how they can retain and the geographical challenges and all these things. I was completely naive. So I simply said, hey, are there roles? And then I was looking for between L1 and H1, and I had no idea like what each of these visa categories are even there. Or what does it mean to permanently relocate? Let's put it this way. I was very happy in my career. I had a well-paying job. I was independent, no plans to move. And here comes the love of my life. Like I meet him and we decide, wow, yeah, this guy, he is the one. He was just sweet, and we decide to get engaged. 9 months later, I'm trying to figure out because we were supposed to get married, moving, and I am very confident in the meantime, working with the companies that I'm going to find a role. Come I believe it was April, May, I suddenly realized as soon as the H1B quota opens, it just within a month it's over. And that was one of the rare ones where like visa category, I'm talking early 2000s, just
Yeah.
completely over. And I had quit my job at that point. I was going to be home for a couple of months before our wedding so I can be with my family. And at that point, I was confident. I'm like, okay, hell, that's okay. It's gone. I'll go find something, right? I'll go find. You don't say that, right? If anyone knows about the U.S. or any, I was completely clueless. But I would tell you, I had completely inner confidence. So for me, my relationship was important. I was moving with somebody, and I didn't want to have like cross border, cross geographical relationship, knowing that we didn't know each other, we hadn't lived with each other. So I made the move here, and I'm so glad I did, because the first year was it was that was the one longest break I've had in my career, right? The first year after moving, because I've always worked. So when I moved here, making new friends, his friends became my friends, and I got so much love from the community. I eventually I wanted to do my PhD, so I had my GRE score, but I ended up finding taking a leadership role, MBA program where they would accept GRE, so I could start working. And as luck would have it, this was in the last crisis, financial crisis, like 2008 timeframe, 6 to 8 timeframe. So when I graduated, I had an internship in brand management in a pharma company, but then my prior background was in financial services. So as luck would have it, in the middle of a financial crisis, I got a job in a financial services company. So I
Wow.
couldn't switch my career, at the time. So I can dive more into that, how I got that job. But I think it was a lot of like inner confidence, like ability to um, willingness rather to understand another culture, And third is going back to school, where I went back to Thunderbird, which was very much about global culture, understanding cross cultural communications, how you adjust, navigate. I had like people from over 10, 15 countries who were in the same class, right? So you learn a lot of things. So I think a lot of those roles prepared me for my next adventure in my life. But yeah, it was hard. Like I didn't have any proven scripts. And I think it was just my own trust in myself when I look back that just got me through.
That's incredible. Your story reminds me so much of mine as well because similar. I'm from Mexico, master's degree, bunch of certifications. I said, like, you know what, super confident. I'm going to go to Canada in my mid 20s. In 12 months, I'm going to become a prime minister here. I got this. And for me, it was similar to you. It's like, wow, like this is so difficult. This is so different. And it took me 5 years just to find my way through the corporate world. So for you now, for example, we started with that journey of like you landing this job, learning about cross-cultural differences and starting your new life with your new love and everything in the States. So what did you face through that journey as you also started working in Fortune 100 companies and started to like climb the ladder?
Yeah, so first one, just about the landing the job, even how I landed, it was through a communication. Basically, I was at a private event. I want to highlight how important it is to think about your networks. When people look for jobs, sometimes you're reaching out on LinkedIn.
Right.
You don't often, or friends, but sometimes you're awkward. You don't ask around. But your biggest chances of success are going to be in people that already know you. So I coincidentally happened to be at a party, at a friend's party, a mutual friend's party. And then one of the wives that I got introduced, she introduced me to her husband, and he was there, and she's like, hey, he works in this company. Oh, your background. Yeah, send the resume. So that chance to encounter, I could have just chosen to sit at that party like quietly, and just because I just didn't know anybody and I couldn't wait to get out of there. But they made that introduction, and that person, that's what got me, that job. They made an introduction, and I'm not saying that was the only thing. Then of course I had to go in the interview, but at least it landed me in front of the right departments who
Right.
were hiring in the middle of the hiring freeze, a worldwide global financial freeze,
Yeah.
meltdown, as we all know now. And in fact, when I interviewed the person who were hiring, they also happened to know my university, because where I studied in masters was the best university in India for economics, like a lot of. So, and I didn't own that fully in the past, like my capabilities, but that was that, right. The experience post that was the first few years was a lot of learning. I got new opportunities right after first year, but then the year three comes and I realized, wow, why am I not getting promoted, right?
Right.
So we are taught culturally to just work hard and stay and do the job, and somebody's going to come and recognize you. That's not how it works in Western cultures, at least not in the US. And I can guarantee, I think even in India, some things have evolved that way. So I learned through that journey to, um, in fact, I went back to the person who had referred me. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for promotion. He's like, are you ready? Are you like also networking? Are you letting people know that you even want a role? Because reality is, and this is additional thing women faced, is people assume that you are starting a family, and
Right.
or like you might not be, you're not ready to be a leader, and or you're not, who knows. So you have to ask for what you want. So what I learned as rising through the ladder is, you have to own your story, and you have to ask people, you have to let people know. uh, Nobody's out there to get you, but people are not mind readers. So that was my lesson in that, to always own my career. And in fact, that is how I landed all of my jobs ever since.
Oh wow, so much to pack, Kalpa. This is incredible. So just to start, like the first one is you found somebody that knew you, like you, and trust you, and because of that, that recommendation referral happened, and that opened just the door to have the interview and be on the right time, in the right place with the right people. So that's incredible because and sometimes people say like, oh, I just need to connect with the right people. And I will say like, well, actually, everybody's the right people because everybody's connected with everybody. So sometimes you might be meeting the wife of the person that's going to help you. And if you are good friends with that wife or the spouse, guess what? You might get that opportunity. So that's incredible. And I love this example from your journey. The next one is about similar to the Indian culture. I believe Mexican and other cultures are the same, where yeah, you just wait for somebody to tap on the shoulder. You don't self promote because an empty vessel makes a lot of noise. That's kind of like the proverb around.
Yes.
And because of that, you just keep quiet, work like 20 hours a day, and eventually somebody's going to notice. And similar to you is you just keep. I remember a mentor, even a manager, saying like, "Well, I didn't know that you wanted to be promoted. That's why you didn't get promoted. Or that's why you didn't get opportunities." And it was like so angry about it. Just because of that. It's like, oh, you need to communicate. You need to own that journey. And that's completely different. So you need to reprogram a lot of that. So I love that part that you are just telling our audience that this is very important, that you own it, communicate it, and be very clear where you want to go. And from there, you mentioned that this is the same approach that you are doing just to get promoted again and again. But if you can just break it down a little bit more into like, what was your strategy? Because you got that first opportunity, but since then you grew like significantly. And
Yeah, so a lot of the roles, and you know, growth comes in many ways. I also tell people to give at the outset, give yourself a little space and grace, because you're moving into a new culture and your career is not going to be linear, right? It's
yeah,
a non-linear career path for most of us. So sometimes my career, so once I landed the role, I had three other, like within the first 3 years, I had my role, even though my title was the same, I had three completely different opportunities. One was like a completely new product launch, managing that. Another, again, going back to, you know, taking bigger opportunities, you know, in the life cycle of the product that we were managing from a risk perspective. And then just to break that down, how I landed that is I literally would have conversations. It's not a single job, I will tell you, that have got by just applying online. It's been one conversation to the other. So I asked somebody to be a mentor. And I have also got rejections, by the way. Some people have said, no, far away, I can't coach you on this. Another person has said, okay, what do you need from mentorship? So I didn't even know. I made all the mistakes that one could make in asking for a mentor, how you approach somebody to be your mentor. Because I learned I needed a mentor, I needed a sponsor, but
right.
how to do that? Nobody handed me the script, right? So just to break it down, the after the first role, I honestly, I think I used to get bored because after 2 years, it's like you could tie my hand and I'm like, I can do the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science. Most of the roles. And so was in risk. I wanted to get back to the product side because my early career was a little bit of an in-house consulting role and analytics. So I made intentionally the pivot of where in the organization do I want to be? Do I want to be, and I'm a big believer of being in different parts of the organization as you grow, because what people don't realize, you get stuck if you just stay in the same functional area. Let me dive into that a little bit. If you are a subject matter expertise, right, you're a scientist or you're a doctor or a, you know, like, or even in the corporate, like you have a very specific lawyer, like a skill set, right? You do need to tap into that, right? But beyond that, how the company operates, how the company is making money, there are so many puzzles. There's not one function that actually makes it all happen. So the more you can expose yourself to different functional areas, that's how a lot of the leaders grow, in general management kind of career paths. So for me, I wanted to move around a lot of different areas and particularly move back to the revenue generating functional areas where I can set the strategy, the product, and all of that. And my first learning was I was in the wrong environment because the culture that I picked, and it took me years to find out, it was very much you grow functionally
Right.
and that's it. And there are very few selected leaders. At some point, they move around, right? But most people grow vertically. And I was one who managed to get probably at least four different functional areas, in my 10 years of career. And I made that happen by and I'm going to break that down. I basically would ask people, see what roles are open. I'll ask my mentors, and then I would go and approach the hiring leader and have a conversation before I even applied. So when the roles opened, in one particular case, I remember I was actually looking to move out of risk, and I had three different conversations. In one conversation, I spoke, and I would look at also the leader as to where they are in their life, what can I learn, and um, are they actually going to support? Even and some leaders are great, but if they are not helping you grow where you want to get, you you can't blame them.
Yeah.
You have to choose where you want to work, right? So I also remember turning down a role because I just felt that wasn't the right role for me, and then I would go with the very intentionally to the role that I wanted to do. But I remember one instance that where one of the leaders, their role wasn't yet open. They told me beforehand that the role is going to open, and that's how I found out. But I had built that relationship and I eventually got the role.
Oh wow.
So so and this is the stats I'm going to share. At least in the US, almost 85% of the roles that you get are basically just like
Hidden.
this. It's pearls and hidden, and you don't land those roles by simply looking at the job boards and just applying. You got to have conversation, particularly even internally. Like your job search doesn't end when you job land a role. You have to continually treat your career, you as a product, even when you are in a company. Because guess what? If you the day you stop valuing you as a in the marketplace, on why you are critical, why that company is also lucky to have you, that is the day, unfortunately, even the company forgets that. A
Exactly.
lot of the times you will be in those
I
situations.
love that. People need to be reminded of your awesomeness. Exactly. So much to unpack. This is incredible. And the stats from the US and the stats of Canada are exactly the same. Over 80% of opportunities are hidden. And the way that you do it through these conversations and coffee chats or tea chats with people, it's similar to what's happening here as well. It's like you just start tapping into the opportunities and how they are approaching. And that's how I discovered how to do it as well. My last 6 job promotions happened over coffee chats. And the same way, it's like just tapping into being in the right moment, the right time, and being proactive enough to say, like, hey, I really like your area. Can you tell me more about it? You know, objectives or the
Yeah.
things that you're doing. So 100%. Something that,
One of the things.
sorry.
Oh, go
No,
ahead.
something that very curious because you say that you perfected or you learned how to ask for mentorship. Can you tell us some insights on how to ask a mentor to become your mentor?
Yeah, I'll tell you, the wrong way to ask is, can you be my mentor? Will you be my mentor now?
Exactly.
That's, you know, uh, so as far as a mentorship, what I have learned also over the years, Mega, a lot of sometimes it's not explicit. You don't call them mentor. They don't know they are their mentor. You haven't told them you are their mentor. They're not thinking that relationship as a mentor. But you know that every time you
Exactly.
talk to them, you learn a ton. You learn a ton by watching their career journeys. So sometimes I have mentors. Now I make a point to let people know, but there was a long time where I don't know that a lot of the things I learned from people that I admire, they even know that I consider them as my mentors, right? So the so that's I wanted to put it out there. Now the cases where I actually did reach out for mentorship was, for example, one of my peer, not my immediate boss, but like a peer, somebody within the organization, then also some senior, leaders, where I would reach out and I would say, hey, this is one area I want to grow, or this is can I admire your, this area aspect of your leadership. Would you be willing to have some conversation where I can share a little bit more about you, ask you a few questions, and then see if this is a good fit for a mutual, would you be willing to mentor me, right? And it's been a while since I have done that in a corporate setting, like in an email format. It's mostly been conversations. But then if they are far away, I've had to send those emails too, because leaders are busy, so you can
Yeah.
block time. But the first step is absolutely asking for some writing in an email. If you are, depends on the person also, right? If they are your peers who you have easy access to, it doesn't always have to be a senior leader, right? So if there could be peers that you want to learn from, there could be another one chain above you, in the hierarchical corporate structure. There might be multiple, so it depends on who you are asking for. Sometimes guides the way how you approach them.
Exactly.
It Right, so sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a phone conversation. Sometimes it could be the only time you're presenting to a senior leader, and that's the only time you can ask them aside for, hey, how did I do, or what can you guide me, like what are you looking for, like asking a lot of questions. And sometimes people take interest, so
100%.
I hope that gives different scenarios for people to, like, how to approach. But it's
I
it's
think
not a Wish it was a science.
What I love about it is that it's not as formal as people think, and the relationship not doesn't need to be so structured. Like, yes, I'm your mentor. Let me tell you all my experience and wisdom. It sometimes it's just very casual. And to your point, I love it because I call it coffee chats, and you just go on coffee chats with the person that you admire, and you just keep asking questions. And as you mentioned, that person is a mentor. That everybody's a mentor in a way. Something that I recommend people to do is like defining the objective of what they want to learn as well, and within that, you can say maybe if it's something related to how should I develop my personal brand, for example. Well, I can have a peer of colleagues or a group of peers that I can do mentorship as well, and that can help a lot just to get ahead on that little thing. But if you want more like leadership or executive presence or strategic thinking, or like something different that you need somebody more senior, oh, perfect. So there is a strategy for that as well. So yeah, we can go
Yeah.
deeper into that later.
Yeah, and then also from mentorship perspective, it is, though I would say, though, be clear about your intention, because if you don't set the
Yeah.
intention or say it out loud, then they are left wondering like, why are you requesting coffee chats again and
Yes.
again? Or, like, at least approach that, hey, I admire you. I want to kind of learn from you. I would love to meet with you and see, if this is an area we can work through. I understand you are busy, and we can talk first time and then decide how often we want to meet or not, right? And I often, those type of, that approach works better, because then people know that if you put in the thought on what you want out of that, and it is never a one-way relationship.
Exactly.
It is always a two-way. When you are mentoring, when you're asking for somebody to be mentored, they are also learning and growing in their leadership skill. They are also learning how to build trust, identify talent that, quite honestly, is one aspect of their job
Yeah.
and their career, trajectory.
100%, and it's a win-win situation. So value for value in a way, and yeah, I love that part. But I want to jump into like the topic, the piece of resistance here, because you have a lot of success. You started also to experience some of the symptoms that high achievers, people that are perfectionists, and I identify myself by the way like that. People that is always like go go go, people pleasing and things like that within your journey. Can you tell us more about how the corporate structure, I would say, showcase that kind of emotions and mental health situation for you to start identifying that, oh, I have something here that I need to work on, and that eventually created your new journey. So if you can walk us through
Yeah.
that process, and also how did that work for you, and how did that change for you?
Yeah. So I was growing in my corporate ladder. At one point, I was a director in a large global company. Almost 40% of the acquisition, I was managing their product and design, teams, including the technology budget for how we bring the a certain part of the experience, if you will, in customer in acquisition journey. And I was traveling. I was a new mom, and this was also a role that I got after multiple rejections. So talk about, that's probably a topic for another day. But I felt like, as an immigrant, I always had to work hard, and
Right.
things were coming back like multiple efforts, and sometimes people assume that as motherhood you don't want a role, or you want a role. And so I learned that I had to navigate, I had to build a support system around me, right? And there was a point where I was getting completely frustrated, and after that I got the role. I was on the verge of also quitting. What I didn't realize, that in parallel I was building a lot of the trauma that I had in the past, and workplace, toxicities, not intentionally, but these things, our workplaces are not designed from trauma to build trust. A lot
Exactly.
of the times our corporate cultures, and just in general capitalism, is designed from trauma, right? Like from rather, trauma designed from lack of trust. So it's a very control thing, right? And what I realized at some point, that I was completely burnt out, and I didn't realize I was burnt out until after a couple of years later.
Oh,
to be
wow.
to be clear, right? 'Cause I left thinking, I came to a point in my career where I felt my values as what I thought my life was going to feel like when I have all these things, and or when I, what my internal reality and how I'm being perceived, or how I believe, what where I would be, wasn't matching the reality in terms of my internal state of, and my external reality wasn't matching my internal. And I felt I was completely, my values were not aligned. So I made the decision to quit. And it was done after working till 2 a.m. in the morning and after at 5 p.m. Right. So not a lot of planning. I just couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
And what I realized after, and then I thought I would get a job in 2 weeks, and that ended up being a 6-month journey sabbatical in between jobs. And working with an executive coach only to realize that a lot my I have and I would say that a little bit of a trigger warning for people that might hear. We will talk about childhood sexual abuse. I had experienced childhood sexual abuse, and I was carrying the trauma from that, and a lot of the coping mechanisms from that around hypervigilance, being high achiever, people pleasing, they were not serving me. I was not showing up in my power. A lot of the time, insubordination and many like microaggressions. I would give people the grace. And then at one point, it came to like, how about where is the grace for me?
Exactly.
Right. So I think part of my quit was also to realize that I was already, even though I realized I didn't know that childhood trauma could impact your workplace, or, how we show up. I knew that that was something my past, and but I didn't. I just didn't have the awareness. And what I realize now, the work that I do with that through the last several years, almost 6 years now, is is the 0 to 8 years of your age are very formative. So what you go through, whether it's abuse, neglect, family dysfunction, or broadly like any kind of global, crisis, war, and these things shape your brain development, your brain's wiring, your ability to think critically and respond to certain situations. And sometimes that part of the brain doesn't get developed, or
Right.
even if it's developed, you just the awareness is not there, right? And a lot of that trauma is stored at a cellular level in your body. So we are always reacting to things as if somebody's out to kill us, right? Which is not the reality in 100% of the most of the time. Now, that was my share of the thing. I couldn't change anything else in the workplace, but this was mine to change, and I had the awareness. So I invested in therapy the subsequent years. Um, uh, I invested in a whole, like, lot of different both top down, like
Hmm.
understanding the brain and how it impacts our body, and then also bottoms up, like your body based somatic like approaches, breath work, like doing a lot of retreat transformation work. And through that, I found my own like healing, and also in a place where I can now openly share, and I actually coach people. We'll get into that, more of that. But yeah, that path, I share this for people because a lot of the times burnout, or attracting toxic people in workplaces, or um, the wrong type of relationships, or challenges in motherhood, like, or not wanting a child. Like, I never wanted a child for a long time. We went through infertility, like a lot of the things you don't realize, but it's an underlying trauma or something of some sorts that actually manifests in our adult life, in our workplaces, in our health, bodily diseases, and people need to know about it.
100%. And I just want to say you're so courageous, and thanks so much for sharing your story, because the moment that you were sharing your story is like, oh wow, I'm identifying with everything that you're saying, and I was like, now it makes sense. One of the reasons I came to Canada is because I had to prove to myself that I had what it takes, that I was enough, that I was good, that I was the best. And since ever, like from the moment I remember, it's like I need to be number one. I need to be the best. I need to be like super high achiever. Perfectionist, yes, at some point. And that, I think 2 years ago, I also experienced burnout. And when I was experiencing burnout, was the worst thing that could ever happen to me, because I was feeling like upside down, like everything was, broken in a way. I was snapping to with my family, which I love so much, and the people that were, being so harsh with me, I was just being gentle and okay, no. So it was like inverse. And I also went through therapy, and I realized that it's a lot of like I did a lot of inner child healing, and I was like, oh, what is this? And a lot of things that you were mentioning is like, yes, you're so right. We grow up and we experience things, and they show up, and sometimes we have triggers. Sometimes we have people that are doing the things that somebody did back in the day, or somebody did or did not do, like the way that it should be done, and because of that, we are feeling uh, different. And yeah, it's for me, it's kind of a huge realization, because even though I do not know if I experienced childhood trauma, I think I did, because I do not remember my childhood. So for sure something happened, and because of that, I have just been creating all of these high achiever and things that I need to compensate. And a lot of people that I know that they are going through the same journey. And sometimes it's like, well, sometimes it's good to talk with a therapist, and sometimes it's good to like just go a little bit deeper, because the reason that we are doing this is just to potentially compensate or try to mask or take away that happens. So what is your now that you know all of this, that you went through that journey, my question to you is, what did you learn? What is your message after, like, now being on the other side?
Yeah. So, number one, no matter where you are, right? No matter what your journey, just remember you're not alone. Particularly for childhood sexual abuse, it's 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys experience childhood sexual abuse before they turn 18. That number, let it sink. It's almost, we are talking at minimum a quarter of world's population,
Yeah.
right? So I haven't kept up to date with the numbers, but 8.5 billion people, 9 billion soon to be, or um, so you're looking at anywhere over 2 billion people, and they could be just around you. It could be the second house, every fourth house, every fourth person you meet, or every sixth person you meet. So just be aware. Number two, the childhood brain, just to break it down a little bit, sometimes our memories are not as logical. We don't, like you were saying, we don't remember. I don't remember some of the things, but we remember the touch, the texture, the feel, how we felt, the inner sense of certain things, right? So sometimes we feel like the memories has to be logical, and it's memories doesn't work that way. So however, if somebody's trying to do that work with therapists or anyone, like, be patient with yourself. And more than knowing exactly what happened, just acknowledging the feeling. And if and I'll share my 3-step process. But basically, when you realize that you have any kind of charged emotions about your past or anything, start with forgiveness. And let me tell you why. Because forgiveness is, it's not absolving the other person of any crimes, right? Whether and I'm not saying everybody went through childhood sexual abuse, but no matter what you went through, there could be other kind of emotional
Right.
abuse. It could be
Neglect.
bullying. It could be, yeah, it could be neglect, emotional neglect, like not mirroring your emotions, as a caregiver, like just didn't they pay attention, or they were themselves incarcerated, or had drug problems or mental illness, or parents were separated. There's all kinds of things that happen in our early childhood, right? So just be aware of, if you are holding any grudge or any, and you're fully justified to, but just know it's not serving you anymore. It's keeping that grudge. It's almost like drinking a poison and praying that your enemy dies.
Exactly.
Right? And Desmond Tutu's book, like Book of Forgiving, was a great resource for me, so I'm sharing that. But one of the things, write down on a piece of paper how you're feeling for your emotions. And don't have to send a letter. It can be a post-it, it can be a letter, many pages, it can be multiple days journey, it can be a one-time journey. You might find even years later you still come back to write something. It's become a regular practice for me to write and pour my emotions, because guess what, my healing does not depend on another person's agreement, their permission, their time, their acceptance of what they did to me or didn't do. I am a sovereign human being, and I
Right.
am completely in charge of my emotions, right? And I can feel the emotions, I can let go. Forgiveness is your first step to moving forward.
Wow. And you know what? Forgiveness is something that sounds simple, but is sometimes supernatural, because to your point, depending on what happened, people hang into that feeling of like revenge or like hatred or so much. But you are so right. Like the first step just to get ahead is forgiveness. And to have the strength to how to do it. Sometimes it's a daily practice for many years just to start experiencing the the forgiveness and the freedom that comes with that forgiveness. And sometimes too as well, it's just forgiving yourself for feeling
Yes.
that you had something to do about it, or that you were the cause, or that you were the issue because of that happened to you. And sometimes it's like no. And something that I learned from my therapist is that doing this meditation that I go into a forest, I find myself, my inner child, and it's like, how are you feeling? Talking with myself at maybe 6 years old or 4 years old, and sometimes it's just like telling myself, "It's going to be okay. You're going to be amazing. You're going to find the love of your life. This is going to be incredible." And hugging each other, and just that, as I telling you, like almost really like my eyes start to water because that's exactly what your inner child needs. They don't need anything else. Just like I'm here. It's all good. You're safe. You're going to be good. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. So, so true that you are capable of giving yourself everything, and you kind of have to remind yourself who's on the driver's seat. Is it that 6 year old or 5 year old
Yes.
driving the seat of how you're driving, or you can be the adult and acknowledge, oh yeah, I see you, you're here, are you safe, do you need water, do you need some food, do you need a hug, like what do you need some music, and build that relationship with yourself, so you don't spiral down based on who else is walking, hitting your trauma is hitting somebody else's trauma, and we are all like going crazy, right?
Exactly.
So forgiveness and grace, and is so important. And what you can't give to yourself, you can give to the other person. Often people have trouble forgiving because they can't forgive, they are holding on to some guilt that I wish I could have done something differently. I
Exactly.
wish I could have told, or I wish I didn't say, I wish I could run away. And I remember this looking at my son when he was 3 or 5 years old, like, and he was lying next to me. And wow, if something were to happen to this child right now, would it be his fault? No way.
Yeah.
So why am I being hard on myself? So hopefully anyone who's listening, if you are holding on to any grudges, uh, for anyone, forgive, because forgiveness is not about absolving the other person. It's about taking the control back of your life, because you're meant to live, you're meant to enjoy, you're meant to enjoy the beauty this life has to offer.
100%. And sometimes doing it alone is very hard, but community, having experts like you, having therapists like that, sometimes all the resources that you need just to start getting on the right track. So that's why we had to talk about this, Kalpa, because it's so important. And if you say like 25, like almost like 25% of the world has something similar to this, for sure. Like this is a huge topic. So that's step
Yeah.
number one. What about the other two steps on your process?
Oh well, yeah. So there are probably many, many steps, but the second step is obviously some kind of, if you're talking to a therapist, that's great. You find a coach, anyone, any help you can get, right? But if you want to just do something on your own, the second step is serve for a cause that your younger self could have benefited from. So in my case, I got involved with kids in the foster care because a lot of the times, sometimes there's abuse, neglect, and all kinds of things. And that's the closest that I could find. And in that process is where I discovered a lot of the healing, a lot of the research on how trauma impacts our brains wiring, right? So if you've seen domestic abuse, for example, in your home, or if you feel like lonely as an immigrant, and help another immigrant or help another person who's going through domestic abuse or a shelter, right? Because in that process you will see that, since you have navigated, now you have the power to help another person, and that in that process it may bring up emotions, but you'll also feel you have something to give, right? And when you can give, whether it's your time, whether it's your money, whether it's your energy, whether it's your sharing, it just comes back manifold through many different
Oh,
ways,
I love
right?
that.
And so that's the second step. And the third step, this is where it gets tricky. This, I have a menu of options, right? So which is all around mindfulness and your healing your body. So um, take control of your mornings, have some kind of ritual is my third step, which is where you can either in the morning wake up and meditate, like your brain is still operating when you're in trauma, like hyper, that mode, like, fight or flight or freeze. Like when a tiger comes,
Yeah.
right, to attack, we think, oh, there's danger. And then you are either trying to, like, the deer is either trying to like pretend or run away or freeze and kind of die. And sometimes in trauma, what happens is we are just storing that in our body. So any similar reactions, similar situations that come, a boss speaks to you in a bad way, or another colleague like gives a passive, aggressive comment or something, and you make up meaning about it, even if there isn't anything. You made it, or maybe there is, who knows? There are all kinds of possibilities. So when you are meditating, right, when in the morning or at night, and even if it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're observing that these are your thoughts, and these thoughts are not always you. Your thoughts, I can say, oh, that's a nice car, doesn't mean I'm sitting there. Oh, there's a I don't know, there's a lizard out there in the garden, but I'm safe here. The lizard is not coming to attack me. So you learn to detach yourself from your thoughts, your body, and your mind, and you still are that sovereign being, a divine being who's a piece of, energy, infinite energy. You exist. So when you meditate, you actually slow down that process of reacting, right? Because there's just so much stimulation when you open your eyes. So close your eyes, sit quietly, or listen to something guided. And there's, you can go as deep, but start with something in the morning, and then within that routine, journaling, like writing, you used it for forgiveness, but start writing, pouring your emotions in the morning, and then move, right? So the third thing is, within that menu is
Moving.
moving, whether it's an exercise, whether going in the nature, whether it's stretching, whether it's yoga, some form of that. And lastly, a lot of it is mindset work, which is more deeper when you get work with a coach, or on your, even on your own. But at least the first three, which is forgiveness, right? Service, and then some kind of form of meditation, journaling. It starts to loosen the bond that you have with your past traumas or addictions, or feeling like intense that you can't even talk about it, to makes you a little bit more open to even receiving support,
I love that. And
so that you can heal.
I can tell you that your step number two, I experienced that by when I was super depressed, 5 years of survival jobs, completely, my identity crashed. I'm cannot even identify myself because of before I was successful, now I'm nothing. All of that, the way I told people that the way that I healed was by helping others in their journey, even though I was not any success whatsoever. I was just like telling them, yeah, here's where I made my mistakes, or here's what I did. So, oh, yeah, they have it. And the last one about owning your morning, it's crazy important because if you start defeated a day and you're in this journey of like ups and downs emotionally, and your mental health might not be optimal, and the day just starts the wrong way, oh man, that day is like hard. And then the next day, it's just another validation of what's happening. And then just go on this spiral down into like feeling really bad, and it takes longer just to get back to normal. So, Kalpa, so much more. I prepared three pages of questions, so but time is going up. My questions to you will be more into just to wrap up. What will be your message if you have one billboard that is accessible to that 25% of people that are experiencing this? What will be your message to them?
Ooh, you are not alone, and you're worthy of love and support and respect.
I love that. Oh, so deep. That's amazing. And lastly, is you are doing amazing things, Kalpa. I want. Is there people? Well, the question is, how can they reach out to you? How can they learn more about what you are doing? Your journey is very inspirational, and also it's something that I relate a lot. So that's why it's like, okay, definitely, let's collaborate. Let's talk more about this. And how can people reach out to you and learn more about you?
Sure. So I am personally very active on LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn. My full name is Kalpashree Gupta. So that's Kalpashree, and Gupta is my last name. So they can find me. I go by Kalpa. So that's one. They can sign up on the newsletter. They can also go to my website, which is connect.com, which is knekxt.com. There's a section where they can sign up for the newsletter, and I'll share the links also with you, Miguel, where I share more resources as soon as I become aware and I've seen anything new that's coming up. For example, my webinars, I keep my audience informed through that so they can find out more ways. And then the third one is I am also on TikTok, but I'm not as active. If they want to, they can find me with, again, my connects.com, name. And then lastly, if they want to find about my travel and early journey, not so much on the sexual abuse, but more around travel and resilience. I also am a best-selling author in a multi-author book called Going Places. So that talks about the story of my early childhood trip when I was 4 years old with my brother and my parents, and then a decade ago when I then took my son for a trip to China. So it just does
Oh, wow.
it'll give people more about me, and the proceeds from that book actually go to an organization that supports foster kids here in Texas. Um, so yeah, those are different ways, and I'm always I work with people through coaching, mentorship. So yeah, if those are resources, some free resources they can find, and they can always reach out to me and make a contact. If anything resonates, I would love to hear more.
That's amazing. And totally, like for everybody that is listening or watching us today, for sure, like to reach out and say hello on LinkedIn, and also to subscribe to your newsletter. I just want to say I want to acknowledge you for being amazing and your journey so inspirational, and for you for being so courageous to open up and sharing, because your voice is being heard by many, like thousands of people that is in a similar journey, and sometimes like similar to me in a sense where, oh wow, now I have a name for what's happened or how I felt, and it's like, oh, now I know what to do, and at least now you can identify that, because as you mentioned, you realize that you were born out many years later. So similar to this, sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't know that I had something like this too, so let's go deeper. And this conversation was just like a perfect opportunity to do that. So thank you so much, Kalpa. Any last words, any last anything like we didn't cover?
Miguel, I also want to congratulate you, and really, you've done an amazing job sharing immigrants' journey. Because when I was listening to a couple of episodes in the past, how somebody landed the job, or there was another gentleman sharing like the owning the accent, like you are actually giving validation to people. So immigrants have additional uh, burden sometimes, especially if you also had trauma, to not just fit in a new culture and navigate through the grief of losing some part of your culture,
Exactly.
but also navigating trauma, dealing with it in relationships without as much support, or sometimes not even coverage, in healthcare or other things, right? So I was privileged to have that. So I want people to know that there are so many, no matter where you are, reach out to people. You can reach out to Miguel and me if you're listening, but you can also find other organizations in your area. Um, and ask for support, right? Because if you don't ask for support, um, you don't get it, and you'll be surprised how the universe is kind. Universe has your back, remember.
Right.
So ask for support.
I love that. Asking for support, finding the right people, the right tribe, the right community, finding the right mentors, like all of this, everything that we talked today is like just incredible. Kalpa, thank you so much. I wish you a great day, and keep rocking. If you have been enjoying our show and finding value in the stories and advice we share, please consider supporting the show by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
We hope you enjoyed this show and that it helps you to find your way or make your way. If you found value, share it with someone who needs it. Until next time, to your success.